everybody, and welcome back to World of Tanks. Today we are going to be reviewing the British Tier 5 heavy tank, the Churchill I. This is one of those tanks that is played a lot, not necessarily because it's a good tank. Not saying the Churchill isn't a good tank, but it's played really just because you have to play it in order to get to the good tanks in the later parts of the line. Like, for instance, let me show you. So, say these tanks, like the FV2115B back here, it's a pretty good tank. And the Conqueror and the I'm not sure how to say this one. Carrier Novon. Whatever. Sorry. I don't know how to say that, but anyway. You have to play the Churchill if you want to get down this line and get to these good tanks. Medium 2 isn't a bad tank. Medium 3 isn't that bad of a tank either. They could definitely have some better things about them, but they're not terrible. The Matilda is a great tank. The Churchill I personally like it, but it's not the best tank in the world. And it's the only Tier 5 heavy tank in the British line. You have to play it if you want to get to the Churchill GC, which stands for gun carrier, or the Churchill 7. So, and then back down this line, or the tank destroyer line. So, if you want to get down either of these lines, you have to play this tank. Unless you don't mind starting with tank destroyers for this line. But anyway, to the point. It's an okay tank. For a heavy, it could be better, but it's alright. So let's take a look at the stats. So, you will start out with a 2-pounder MKX gun. The stock gun, the stock turret, and the stock engine, and the stock tracks. Look at this turret. This is a very weird turret. A very oddly shaped turret. There's this thing, I think it could be something to do with the ammo rack, but it's weirdly placed nonetheless what it is. The turret is just weird. And look at that tiny gun. You compare it to this gun down here, which this gun right here, you can't use it in battle. It is a howitzer that was used on the actual Churchill. It's just here for an accurate representation of the Churchill and to make it look nice. But this is, compared to this gun, which is not that big of a gun, it is tiny. In fact, compared to any gun, really, it's tiny. It's not even a howitzer. It's just a tiny little 2-pounder gun. It does not... It's got some good things about it, but it really doesn't belong on this tank, and I'll show you why. So, does 34 damage and 58 penetration. Damage roll is not that good, and most tanks, pretty much all Tier 5, Tier 4, there might be a few exceptions to Tier 4, but pretty much all the Tier 5s are going to have over 58 millimeters of armor. It's pretty accurate. It does quite a few shots. It's got a really good reload. Its aiming time isn't that bad either. And really, just the rate of fire and the aiming time is the only good thing about this gun. It's really the wrong kind of gun for this tank, and it's not that good anyway. Now you'll notice I don't have the second pair of tracks for this tank, but only adds a little bit more traverse speed, so you're going to have to get it if you want the gun carrier, but if you don't care about that, you don't have to. You can, but it's not that big of a deal. Stock engine. Normally this tank has 300 horsepower, but if you get the next engine, it does add a little more weight, but you get 50 more horsepower. This is not a very fast tank. If you look at the stats, it does 26 kilometers per hour. In a straight line, it's an okay speed. Turning or turning on the spot, it's really slow. You don't even really reach that speed of 26 unless you're going downhill. So, yeah, definitely not the fastest tank in the world. Now, you have a choice of two things. Really, you have to get this thing, but you can also go for the howitzer, which I believe only works with this turret. Doesn't look much better than the last gun. Only good thing about it is that it does more damage if it penetrates, but that's a howitzer for you. If you're into howitzers, by all means, buy it, but I'm not really into howitzers, so I bought it, tried it, didn't like it, skipped over it. After a while, you can get the next turret. So it looks like this. I think it looks a lot better on the tank. There's a funny thing about this turret, though. If you look at it compared to the stock turret, it actually has less armor than the stock turret. Side stays the same, 88 millimeters, but it goes from 101 millimeters on the front to 88 on the front. The rear goes from 88 to 76, so you actually have less armor on this turret. But you're gonna need this turret to get to these guns. Really, the only good guns on this tank is the last two, but I'll get to those in a minute. Let's go over the armor really quick and everything else about this tank before I get to the guns. So, whole armor, 177 at the front, 63 at the sides, and 50 at the rear. Turret armor, already went over that. With the normal turret, it's 800 hit points, I think. Let me check. No, it's 780. Okay, so it's 780 with the stock turret, and with the upgraded turret, you get 840. So, your turret is okay, but it's not really a good idea to hide most of your... Well, I was gonna say it's not a good idea to hide most of your tank behind cover except your turret because it can be penetrated. But then again, that's not exactly true. I mean, you will get penetrated with this turret, but at the same time it keeps most of the weak armor on your tank covered up, so all they can shoot at is a small turret. But I don't think that's the best idea. Rear armor is crap. Pretty much, if you're attacking one of these and you're at the rear, shoot where you like, because you're going to penetrate and do damage. Tracks are weird because they're exposed almost everywhere, except right here in the middle, and a little bit on the back, and even less on the front. Gears of these tracks. Sides, not that much better. If it's not angled, you can shoot where you like. And usually, even if it's angled, you can still shoot where you like. Turret, same thing. It does have a bit of angling, so you might bounce a few shots on the turret, but usually just shoot where you want. The front of this tank is where it gets interesting. It's 177, so it's close to 200, but it's not quite there. Thing is, it's the lower glacis and the upper glacis are angled, but not angled that much, so they will bounce some shots, but if you have a good gun, you can still penetrate it. What you really want to go for, though, if you're facing the front of this, is this spot, because it's thick, but it's flat. It's perfectly flat. Plus, this gun can't fire at you, so if the tank's looking at the other way, well, why not? It's sort of like the same situation for the KB1, although the KB1 does have it's actually angled a little bit, but it's not angled a lot, so you can actually shoot at this place right here and usually penetrate, especially because it's got weak spots. Pretty much the same concept on the Churchill, except it has the, I'm not sure if the howitzer gun counts as a weak spot. I don't know if it does, but that's not the point. The point is it's flat, so you don't even really have to look for a weak spot. You just shoot at it. If you're driving the Churchill, the way you want to come about this to keep yourself from taking as much damage as possible is to have your front facing them and angle your tank just a little bit. Because although your sides aren't very thick, if you angle it just a little bit, you can bounce shots on this side of the tank. Unless, of course, you go for the bottom of your tracks, but you can still bounce a few shots. If you angle it a lot more, though, it doesn't really do anything for you. You want to angle it just a little bit to increase that thickness. If you angle too much, they're going to penetrate anyway. And this helps because not only have you increased the side armor a little bit, you've also made it just a little harder to hit the front, and also increased the front a little bit because it's angled. But really, what you usually want to do, even if you're doing this, is have cover, because your tank is a fairly long tank, and it's not that well armored, so even when you're angled, you want to have some good cover, so that tanks that are trying to flank you can't shoot you. And you don't want to get flanked in this thing because it's too slow, even with the turret traverse, which is slow, to do anything about it, unless the enemy's stupid enough to wait behind you instead of backing up and taking cover themselves. So that's basically how you play this tank. Now, let's go back to the guns. Next gun is a 6-pounder. Your damage goes down, your penetration goes up, rate of fire increases, and it's a bit more accurate. Still, looks kind of weird, not a very good gun. Alright, next gun. 6-pounder MKV. Everything stays the same, except it's a little more accurate and it penetrates a little bit more. It's really the same thing. It's getting there, but it's still not really a good gun for this tank. It doesn't even look like a tank gun. After you've got this gun, you can grind the XP if you want to get to the Churchill 7. But I would suggest instead going a step or two further and getting either at least this gun or both of these guns, because they will really help you grind out the XP. 75mm MKV. Doesn't penetrate as much. Your rate of fire goes down. It's a little bit more inaccurate, but it does more damage. Now it's starting to look like a gun. But you don't want to stop there. If I were you, I'd get the final gun on this tank. 75mm Vickers HV. Damage stays the same as the MKV. However, sorry about that. Go back here. But it penetrates more, and it's more accurate. Aiming time takes a while, and it definitely takes a while to load, so I would definitely recommend getting this gun, because first of all, it actually looks, it's really the only gun that actually looks and works like a tank gun. The reload isn't terrible, but it's kind of slow, but that really doesn't matter, because this gun penetrates okay, but it does a lot of damage as well. So that's definitely the kind of gun you're going to want to get on this tank. Even if you're going for the Churchill gun carrier, because that actually costs more than the Churchill 7. And so you can grind out either tank with this gun, or both. So that's the gun I would recommend on this tank. So, get this gun, get the upgraded engine, turret, and I guess tracks if you want them. Remember to angle your tank slightly. Expose mostly just the front of your tank, because that's where you have the most armor. And have a lot of good cover, or at least allies to back you up. For the equipment, I would say the thing you want most is a gun rammer, because it will help with your reload time, and then you can pump off more shots. Lane drive, you could, but I don't think you really need it. I mean, it doesn't take too long to aim. So you can get it if you want, but I really wouldn't suggest this. Ventilation is always good. Springs, no. You're not going to be going very fast at all in this tank, and it's very unlikely that you're going to be going down a very high hill at the speed you're going. Wet ammo rack, maybe, but I usually don't find that my ammo rack gets damaged. Sometimes, maybe once in a while it gets damaged, but so far I've never had my ammo rack explode. Camouflage, well, you're probably going to be sitting around a bit, so you might want that. You might really consider getting one of these, or both, because view range isn't terrible, but, well, it's to be honest, the view range isn't that good. Let's just put it that way. 240, okay, but not that good. So I would suggest maybe getting one of these. I wouldn't worry about the heavy spall liner, because ramming isn't too terrible of a threat to you since you're fairly heavy. Explosions, doesn't really do too much to you, and usually you won't have enemies firing high explosive at you. You'll have enemies firing armor piercing usually. Can get it if you want, but I really would not recommend this. Toolbox. Yeah, you might want it, because if you're tracked, or your engine is knocked out, or in a bad condition, you would really want to get up and moving again, and you want to get moving fast so you can get out of sight of their guns, because if you're in a Churchill that has its engine damaged, and you're going very slow, and you're in a bunch of tanks' guns, in the front of their guns, you're basically a walking bag of XP and credits, just waiting to be burst open. So that's this tank. Let's get on to the replays. So, here we are in Mirage, and this is a tier 6 game. And actually, you might notice that this video is actually what has some of the footage that I used on my new intro. So you can kind of see some behind the scenes of what the rest of the game looked like. So here we are. I'm heading this way in my Churchill. And as you can see, I'm going relatively fast, and I actually, because there was a little bit of a downslope there, I actually managed to get 24 for a second or two. But as you can see, as I go up this hill, it slows right back down to below 18, around 10 kilometers. So, usually this part of the map is swarming with tanks, even if it's only half the enemy team, but there wasn't really any enemies on this side. In fact, there was only friendlies on this side the whole time. Lemming trains, but it wasn't exactly a lemming train. Anyway, so I'm going around and just barely managed to wedge myself between this rock and this house, but I get out unscathed. So I'm coming around this side because I checked the mini-map and I see that everyone of the enemy tanks is on this side. And I don't do too much in this game. I do a decent amount of damage, but I only get 1 kill. I've been spotted, and there's one of the enemy tanks. And see, I don't quite angle my armor right, and he gets a good shot into me. He might have even got it in my turret or somewhere weak, but he's taken out. So, there's a Panzer, I was gonna shoot at him, but then that Jagdpanzer 4 pops up, and I have a bit of a struggle to penetrate him, which is quite frustrating because I can clearly see that I can penetrate him, but I bounce with both of my shots. And this is why this gun is good, because you can see I did a pretty good amount of damage there. And it doesn't take too long to reload. You can deal decent amounts of damage with this gun. You just gotta let it aim and know who the weak enemies are and who you can take out, and if you have support especially. Yeah, so those guys are done for. There's Churchill I. I hate those things because they're really tough. Take a shot and I do 172 damage. Thinking I'm in a bit of a bad situation, but the guy behind me dies. And look at this. I killed him, but I did 348 damage. Whew. That's why this gun is good. Because with the help of your friends and your allies, you can actually do a lot of damage over a period of time. And that's the end of this match. Good example of how good this gun is. Alright, Fort Despair. Tier 5 game. And it looks like I'm the leader on my team. So, just waiting for the match to start. And it took quite a few games before I finally got this victory. I mean, I did have a few other victories, but they weren't as good as this one. This one shows some good tactics and concepts of the Churchill I. So right now I've decided to go around this end because I usually don't, and if I do, it should give me a good sight of the camp circle. And we've spotted a Luke's making a run for the cap. And the great thing, this is a key point here, the great thing about these hills is even though I have to move a little bit so that I can actually fire the gun, these hills are high enough that they protect most of my tank, especially the weak side armor, from taking shots. And I do have to be careful to make sure my side armor is actually behind the hill, but I'm pretty well protected as long as I am behind this hill, which means I can take shots at enemies and keep most of my tank protected. So for the meantime, just remember that you should always use, in a Churchill I, you should always use the landscape to your advantage. I've been spotted now. And I'm afraid that Churchill I is going to come after me, but he doesn't. He goes around. So I decide to go around this way. And I'm having second thoughts because of my speed, and I'm thinking they might flank us from behind, but they don't. So, coming around this corner, we are losing some guys, but they're doing good damage at the same time. I come to take a shot at this guy, but I bounce or miss or something. I think I just hit under his tracks, and then the guy got it before me. So, is another key point. Try to angle yourself, and I am angling a little bit too much. But I am coming around this corner. And also, a good thing about this tank that you should remember is that it's great for taking out tank destroyers as long as they're not looking at you. M3 Lee, I took a bounce actually. As you can see, I angled, and I said before that you don't want to angle a lot, but sometimes angling a bit more than you'd like to might help. As you can see right here, use your gun when you see low health enemies. And he did do quite a good amount of damage to me, but he also bounced a lot. And so he's done, and it's just their T40. He decides to come around this corner, takes a big hit, and then one of my allies takes him out. So some big key points to remember. Use the landscape, and make sure that you angle your armor. That match was pretty good. I did get quite a lot of credits. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Peace out and goodbye.